and welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. I'm Stelios Hatzakis, CEO of One Business World. The Leading Entrepreneurs of the World series is a digital presentations, informational and educational series with leading entrepreneurs, investors, advisors, subject matter experts, and educators. Our goal is to provide the global business and entrepreneurial communities with a window into the mind of those who are shaping the future of the world. Today, we're very pleased to welcome educator, writer, academic researcher, and global financial technologies innovation leader, Dimitrios Salampasis. Dr. Dimitrios Salampasis serves as the Director, Master of Financial Technologies, and lecturer of FinTech Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Swinburne Business School of Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. Dimitrios is also a visiting professor of FinTech at the University of Québec in Canada, a blockchain and FinTech fellow at the Singapore University of Social Sciences, and a visiting faculty member at the School of Management Fribourg in Switzerland. Prior to joining academia, Dimitrios worked in the management consulting industries, being involved in global advisory and consulting activities on emerging market investing, assisting companies in developing long-term strategic focus and sustainable market business strategies. Dimitrios publishes in international academic journals and books, and his work is presented in major international conferences, speeches, and lectures around the world. Dimitrios' research interests revolve around the organizational, human, technological, and societal sides of innovation and open innovation in financial services and FinTech innovation. Dimitrios, it is a great pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today to hear more about how financial services institutions can innovate in the age of quantum computing. Welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World.
Good morning from Melbourne, Australia. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you this morning. And thank you so much for the very kind invitation and the very heartfelt introduction. May I just confirm that you are looking at my slides properly?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. So today I'm going to bring you a little bit into the future by touching upon a very interesting and really magical technology which is related to quantum computing. And what we're going to talk in this within the next hour, we're going to be dealing around what does this technology actually mean for business, and more focusing on financial services. Therefore, the key points of this today's intervention and conversation will be around a little bit around quantum computing, just to give you a little bit of a heads up on what does this actually mean. What are some potential applications for quantum computing in the financial services industry? What are the opportunities that quantum computing can represent, and which financial services institutions can really position themselves best to seize these opportunities? And finally, how can financial services institutions become quantum ready? Now, we live in a world of data. We live in a world which is really grounded on the knowledge-intensive economy, which is around the notion of inclusivity, which is around the vision that we are looking into paving the way and the pathway towards a sustainable future. And that is done through data. And data, together with information, are really the new value potentialities, are really the new vehicles for value. We have a lot of data. There is a lot of data abundance in the world. And this requires both an intersection within technology, humanities, so as on the one hand to be able to have the real accessibility and the real analysis of the data in real time. And all this because we need informed, sound, and better ways to have decision making. Because thinking strategically, thinking for our lives, thinking across the digital narratives of the world, it's really key to have a very solid and sound decision making. Therefore, from a philosophical consideration point of view, it's the pathway towards moving into the fusion between the physical space and the cyberspace. And how can we combine both of them in a way that is meaningful, that is sustainable, that is ethical, that is really paving the way towards a future for humanity and mankind. The reason why I started with this particular introduction is because I wanted to bring you slowly and closely to the emergence of the narratives around quantum computing. And around what quantum computing really is, it's really into the intersectionality of the power of subatomic particles. I really enjoyed reading a quote by Seth Lloyd, who's a professor of mechanical engineering and physics at the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who says that a classical computation is like a solo voice, one line of pure tones succeeding each other. A quantum computation is like a symphony, many lines of tones interfering with one another. And I think this particular quote really encapsulates the magic, but also the challenges that quantum computing is about to bring within the next years, within business, within society. And it really will try to recontextualize, redefine, and reposition the way we understand, we capture, we analyze data, and in order to make informed decision making. So what is actually quantum computing? Quantum computing, by definition, provides the ability to process information that is represented by spatial quantum states. It leverages quantum mechanics, which is basically the subatomic particles that possess characteristics of both particles and waves. And the whole purpose behind quantum computing as the key value proposition is really the ability to process in a fast way information, ability to provide simulations or optimizations compared to classical computer. Therefore, what it does, it's really the ability to provide a new lens towards approaching and conceptualizing real-world problems. And within the next couple of slides, I'm going to also present you what could these real-world problems could look like. The key DNA behind quantum computing is the quantum bit, or also known as the qubit, which is basically the quantum version of bits that you all know that are used in classical computing. So the qubit, by definition, what does it do? It basically represents and stores information in both parts of binary information, denoted by 0 and 1 simultaneously during the actual calculation, instead of what traditional computers do with traditional binary units, which is either 0 or 1. For example, if we take the example of a coin, if you flip the coin, you either get a head or tail. But how about you just spin the coin, which have got massive potentialities and massive combinations. Therefore, the reasoning behind the utilization of qubit is the fact that it's 100,000 times faster operation and bigger data storage compared to traditional computers. That means it has the ability to hold more information. And if we try to picture that in the way that quantum physics and quantum mechanics work, it's really positioned as a pair of what we call superconducting metal stripes, which are separated by a gap of 1 nanometer wide. And the whole purpose of using the qubit is the fact it's really on the quantum effect, which is the result of the way electrons cross that particular gap. Now, I don't want to bother you further with additional technicalities, but I just thought it would be very interesting for you to capture at least what does this actually mean and why are we actually discussing quantum computing. And of course, more qubits mean more computational capacity. However, and this is where some of the challenges arise, apart from the hardware of actually developing and building in quantum computing, the main challenge is that the more qubits, the harder to maintain a delicate state of quantum, which is one of the key challenges right now that scientists are facing. Therefore, this challenge is translated into the objective of how can you actually have a simultaneous scaling and control of all these 1,000 qubits that consist the quantum computation without the corresponding decline in qubit fidelity and performance. This is where the whole delicate balance really lies. Also, we need to understand that in order for qubits to work and have that kind of fusion, it's really important that they are protected from the outside interference, meaning, for example, electromagnetic radiation, noise, etc., and must be kept at almost below 0, which is at approximately 273.15 Celsius minus. Therefore, a discussion that is taking place nowadays within the scientific world is basically the fact that we may end up having quantum computers maintained by the manufacturers and then using cloud for businesses or any other application to have the accessibility of the quantum capability by the customers. And as I said, all of this at the moment is at the stage of experimentation. Therefore, what actually the purpose here is to understand is that the quantum computer and the problem set interact in an exponential scalability. That means the more powerful a quantum computer will be, the more exponentially growing the problem set that is able to solve is. Now, a little bit further into the technical side is to understand the three key pillars that intersect within quantum computing. And these are put in three key dimensions. The first one is the superposition, which basically the particles can exist across all possible states simultaneously. The second key is basically the entanglement, which is really around connected groups of particles which can interact in ways that is not possible to describe the quantum state of each particle, even when there is a large distance that separates these particles. Basically, it's the computational multiplier for qubits, and therefore entangling more qubits together results in an exponential growth of a system's ability to make calculations. Interference at the end is really around the fact that, as I said before, the noise intervention from the environment can damage the quantum object, which means that the waves of functions of particles can either enforce or diminish each other. Therefore, the quantum behavior can decay and can ultimately disappear. Therefore, this interference can break the fragile correlation between two or more qubits, because these qubits cannot be entangled within the wired universe. They have to be entangled with one another. And at the end of the day, also, we have to remember that quantum computers conduct these calculations by manipulating qubits in a way that affects these superimposed probabilities before making a measurement to gain a final answer. Now, of course, the next question that you're going to ask me is, all right, but is this just one quantum computer, or are there plenty? So the answer to this is basically a threefold. We've got what we call a universal quantum computer, which has the ability to solve a wide range of problems running on approximately 100,000 qubits to process calculations faster. And it's really grounded, the ones who are more familiar with mathematics and algorithms, with the Source and Grover's algorithms, which are the most popular algorithms in quantum computing. And it's also considered as the most powerful, the most general, and also the hardest to build. This is why, as you can see on the right side of the table, it has also the most potential applications that can be utilized on. Then we've got the analog quantum computer, which has the ability for complex quantum interaction simulation. It's running at approximately 50 to 100 qubits, and it will have some sort of a partial generalizability. That's why it has lower potentialities in terms of how the analog quantum computing could be applied to multiple scenarios. And then we've got the quantum annealer, which is suitable for solving organization problems. It has some sort of a possible combinations of different variables, determining the most efficient configuration. It is not possible, though, to program so as to solve any type of calculation, so it's quite restrictive by nature. And really, and that's what scientists say, there is no real advantage over conventional computers. This is why we can only use it for optimization purposes. Now, an interesting thing here, because as you know, Google and IBM are the key players within quantum computing globally. We have some sort of a philosophical consideration here around the approach towards quantum computing. On the one hand, we've got Google that talks about quantum supremacy, which is really a single milestone approach, whereas IBM is talking about quantum advantage, where is some sort of a continuum. These two narratives, they really both correlate, but also disintegrate the overall discussions around quantum computing on the fact that how do we actually envision the development and the scalability of the technology, but also on the real applications, and how all these key businesses and key stakeholders can utilize and leverage on quantum capabilities. At the moment, though, we don't have any scalable commercial grade quantum computer which has been built in order to support all these kind of real potentialities and real data capabilities for solving real problems. But as I'm going to talk a bit later, we will see how numerous financial services institutions really try to explore and experiment using different quantum computing capabilities with different proof of concepts across different areas of financial services business models. Now, I started before by saying that one of the key foundational reasons behind quantum computing is trying to solve and address problems which are really, really massive and which require not just only data, but also computational power for analysis and interpretation of all this information. And what does quantum computing will try to do is try to minimize the analysis, minimize the way we can receive credible information that can inform decision making. For example, what could be some potential large-scale combinatorial problems? It could be, for example, for simulation of a precise behavior of molecules, for example, which can lead to discovery of new drugs, vaccines, and materials. And I think that's now really, really important when we all live in the COVID-19 pandemic era, whereas there is so much need for drug discovery, for experimentation, for exploration, for managing the behavior of molecules. Could be, for example, used for optimization of traffic flows in real time so as to avoid or even reduce congestion. So imagine how this could change our lives by having that real-time optimization and finding the best route so as to avoid traffic or to be delayed for work or to waste time in the cars because of traffic. It can also help towards making long-term weather predictions. It can, for example, help ascertaining minimum cash balance across ATMs at different locations, which also takes into consideration multiple variables or also variations in withdrawal levels for each ATM. It can help, for example, with combating climate change or planning for space missions. So you see real problems and real challenges that require really massive combinatorial capabilities. And these problems also require massive combinatorial scalability. That could be a way that potentially quantum computing could help. Therefore, potential use cases across different industries include finance, include agriculture, include blockchain and crypto, include combination with artificial intelligence, manufacturing, industrial design, national security, cybersecurity, logistics, healthcare. So really multidisciplinary and multidimensional ways of trying to understand what could be some use cases around how these industries can change and can leverage quantum computing capabilities. An interesting research that was conducted by BCC Research on quantum computing technologies and global markets, it shows a little bit on the prospective market opportunities, because we also have to consider the fact that these technologies mean nothing if they don't solve problems and if they don't try to create business opportunities, create new business models, create new offerings, create alternative pathways for value creation, value extraction, and value dissemination to the ecosystem. Therefore, what BCC says that on a compound annual growth rate by 2022, we're going to see quantum computing at the level of 37.3%. By 2022, it will be worth $161 million US. But between 2022 and 2027, we're looking at the compound annual growth rate of approaching approximately 53% and worth at $1.3 billion. And particularly for financial services, which is the focus of today's presentation, we're looking at the compound annual growth rate from around 62.6 between 2022 and 2027. So again, we see these prospective market opportunities and growth potentialities of quantum computing and how this can potentially change the particular landscape. And also research that was conducted by CB Insights, we also see that we have some quantum computing deals which are on the rise, and companies are also getting funding. We see a lot of attention by VCs, by equity funding. So trying to see some sort of a growth that is really looking across also the ability for businesses to access such kind of quantum computing capabilities. And that requires research and development, requires investment in these areas, requires also a lot of work to be conducted. Therefore, there is a need there, and there is a push for further research and development in that space. An interesting research also that is conducted by Gartner, and I'm sure you all know about the hype cycle that Gartner is publishing every year. It's very interesting the fact that for 2020, Gartner positioned quantum computing at the hype cycle for compute infrastructure. And basically they've positioned it in the way that it's still in the innovation trigger, and it will take more than 10 years to see any kind of potential scalable application and real hands-on application across businesses. And I think one of the key reasons behind that is, first of all, the fact that the technology is so complicated, and also the fact that the challenges in order to be able to maintain the quantum mechanics and maintain that stability between the qubit intersection, and the fact that if you have all these environmental interference, which can destroy the balance between and the interactivity between the qubits, this is also quite important to have solutions that, on the one hand, maintain the technical supremacy, but on the other side, it also allows for the accessibility of these quantum computing capabilities through businesses and through customers. Therefore, if we look at it from an evolutionary point of view, and that's my take on it, I think at this stage we're still at the possible towards a probable scenario where we still don't know if it's going to happen, and therefore we need to think it also from a futuristic point of view, an evolutionary transformation point of view, where at currently there is a lot of discussion, there is a lot of conversation, there is a lot of proof of concepts, but at the same time, we haven't really seen, as I said before, anything scalable, anything really hands-on for businesses to utilize. However, as I said, there is a lot of experimentation at the moment. There is a lot of attention from R&D and from big organizations globally, not only financial services, but also other players across different industries, to try and utilize this way and try and see how we can actually utilize quantum computing to solve problems which are both of global scale, but also are more into the industry-related perspectives. And an additional reading around the evolution of quantum computing comes from Tony Atley, who's the president of Honeywell. And Honeywell International is an American publicly traded multinational conglomerate, which primarily operates in 4 areas of business, which are performance materials and technologies, aerospace, building technologies, and safety and productivity solutions. And he provides a bit of an alternative definition around the evolution of quantum computing. So basically, he brings up front 3 key areas. The first one is the emergent area, basically providing the kind of things, algorithms that can work with. And then he talks about the classically impractical stage, which is really around running computations that typically are not run on today's computers. And then he talks on the third area, the classically impossible era, which is what basically computations on quantum computing and basically things that they cannot be processed within the universe timeframe that we all know. Therefore, looking into that facts that really classical supercomputers cannot perform and cannot do. So again, that's an alternative capturing of what could the evolution of quantum computing could look like in the future. Now, today's presentation, though, it's really grounded on what does quantum computing really mean for financial services, and what could be some potential applications across different subsectors within the financial services industry, and also how financial services institutions could think strategically, could utilize this particular technology, and how they can become more quantum computing ready and show that particular readiness. So within the next, within the following time, I'm going to present you some ways that current incumbents and big financial institutions around the globe have been trying to play and utilize quantum computing, primarily by developing proof of concepts and by joining big techs, by joining quantum startups, or also by creating some sort of a conglomerates also within academia and other players around the globe. Because again, we have to appreciate the fact that because quantum computing is such a complex and it's such a vast and multi-dimensional technology, you need also a bigger, you need an ecosystemic view towards trying to capture the capabilities that this potential technology can offer. Therefore, in the finance space, we're primarily looking around forecasting computational models. We're looking into performance of markets and portfolios. We're looking into optimization processes for fraud detection and portfolio risk, which is one of the most foundational areas of financial services. And of course, the traditional Monte Carlo simulations around, the financial risk assessment and the financial forecasting models. And I'm sure you have all heard about Monte Carlo simulations. Is a computerized mathematical technique that allows people to account for risk in quantitative analysis and decision making. And it is used across finance, project management, energy, manufacturing, engineering, research and development. It has also been used in oil and gas, transportation, environment, and really tries to provide an informed decision making with a range, by providing a range of possible outcomes and the probabilities that will occur for any choice of action that is about to happen. So it shows what we call these extreme possibilities and the outcomes for really making also a conservative decision, but also making a really informed decision. So really around providing all these possible consequences for decision making. This is the one area that we see that quantum computing can really play a very big role towards financial services. Now, I've also brought differently the blockchain and the cryptocurrency space, because the reason why I did that is really around the fact that most of the space is grounded by the notion of the cryptography. And I'm sure you're all familiar with blockchain as a distributed ledger that is harnessing the power of cryptography to create a ledger that cannot be changed, basically, and the ability to have a dynamic way of storing information and storing events on blockchain that cannot be changed. Therefore, what we're looking here is we're looking into quantum resistant cryptography. We're looking into development of quantum resistant ledgers, and we're looking also the development of post-quantum cryptography standards, because on the other hand, quantum computing could be used, of course, to break all these cryptographic codes, which, if it falls in the wrong hands, of course, it can have catastrophic consequences for financial services per se. Therefore, a lot of now, as I said, research and a lot of funding has been put together in relation to looking at quantum computing across multiple industries. And within Europe, we have a very interesting project, which is called NIASQC. And it's really around the project that, and it's only there is one financial institution that is participating, the HSBC, and it's really trying to see how we can utilize quantum computing and explore different applications in this particular project. It's a 4-year project that is funded by the EU Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. Now, let's now within the next minutes try and see how we can basically look across quantum computing in financial services and what could be some pathways that incumbent institutions utilize towards the development of quantum computing. So now the starting point here, I'll start with MasterCard. MasterCard has partnered with IBM, has partnered with Tyndall, and has partnered also with the University College of Dublin. And what they try here to do is they're looking primarily on the card loyalty benefits and grounded also on data security and payments network. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to find ways to appreciate the individual level. What they're trying to do here is they're trying to find ways to customize computer reward programs. And what they also think, which would make sense, would be some sort of both expected but also foreseen benefits. And what they have come up so far is they think that some of these benefits will be around efficiency, will be around choice, will be around customer satisfaction, will be around lower cost of service delivery. And also another area that they're looking into again, of course, in the card loyalty benefits, they're looking into the prediction models. So basically, how can you really combine rewards for an individual card holder, which also will help a lot towards creating customized, personalized offerings, and will try to take into consideration the real individual potentialities, the real individual contextual peculiarities into rewarding the customer according to the development of their offerings, and try to combine all these within really harnessing the powerful data that card loyalty and all these reward benefits programs really generate. So it's an interesting project, and as I said, MasterCard is being part of this particular team of organizations that are trying to explore what could be a potential use case to that respect. Another one, which is the Deutsche Börse Group, which is the exchange operator in Germany. What they try to do, they have partnered with the JOS Quantum, and the focus here is more grounded on the computation of risk models. Basically, what they do is they try to see and forecast the financial impact of unfavorable and potentially harmful external developments, for example, macroeconomic events, changes in competition, new regulation, and so on. And again, this is part of the Monte Carlo computation that normally would take 10 years. With the quantum computing time, it would take 30 minutes. So you see how it changes a lot the speed for processing and analyzing data, how it changes a lot the efficiency and the effectiveness of having real data harnessing real data, to harnessing real-time analysis and providing real-time information that can again determine a very sound decision making. This is really important, I think, from that side. So it's really looking at the risk side point of view. Another example with another very interesting case with trade tech. Trade tech uses artificial intelligence to provide accurate and up-to-date credit scores to small and medium-sized enterprises who would not normally have the ability to access financing. And this particular research aims at using quantum neural network algorithms to enable what we call a quicker credit assessment, taking, of course, into consideration and account the growing volume and variety of data that flows within the trade tech systems. And trade tech has partnered with the Singapore Management University. It's also supported by the Monetary Authority of Singapore and, of course, IBM. And here, as I said, the whole notion behind this particular exploration is grounded on the quantum machine learning, basically models for better credit scoring, investment and portfolio decisions, and really using predictive analytics and using the predictive machine learning models to improve the accuracy of credit scoring. And also what they're looking at the moment, they're looking into deploying this both on a quantum computer and also on a simulated quantum computer. So trying to see different experimentation approaches and different ways of trying to see what could be the role of quantum computing there and how can it actually harness, again, the growing volume and the variety of data that trade tech systems have on their disposal, and trying to see what could be some ways that predictive machine learning models could work towards a particular area of credit scoring and investment and portfolio decisions. All right, again, remember that the business application here towards informed decision making, towards creating credible research outcomes and credible data that can be utilized and analyzed properly for determining optimal scenarios and determining the best possible way of proceeding further, both with credit scoring and portfolio and investment decisions. BBVA, which has been at the forefront of fintech innovation for a very long time, what they are trying to do here is they're looking into different cases, which include the static and dynamic portfolio optimization. They're looking into credit scoring process optimization. They're looking into currency arbitrage optimization, and currency arbitrage basically means the definition of algorithms to deal with the complexity and competition involved in the process of deriving income from buying and selling currencies. Credit scoring, which is also quite important, as I said, and credit scoring is really around the development of new credit scoring algorithms to deal with the increasing size of the data sets, and derivative valuations and adjustments. That's also a very interesting thing. And portfolio optimization, which is computing optimal trading trajectories to determine the potential impact of multiple variables on the portfolio's performance over time. And I like a lot the quote by Carlos Kachowski, who is the global head of research and patents within BBVA. He says that although this technology is still in an early stage of development, its potential to impact the sector is already a reality. Our research is helping us identify the areas where quantum computing could represent a greater competitive advantage once the tools have sufficiently matured. We believe that this will be for certain concrete tasks in the next 2 to 5 years. Now, the key word that I would like to keep from this particular quote is the word competitive advantage. And again, we're looking into a business context. We're looking into ways of harnessing technology to create new business models, to create new offerings, to create new value propositions, to create new pathways for value creation, which is also bearing in mind that because of COVID-19, the value creation narratives have also changed quite a lot. Therefore, we're looking into the companies that will really try to harness these particular technological developments to evolve themselves both as organizations, but also to try to provide new offerings, and the offerings to customers probably they haven't even thought about. So not only just responding to disruption, but also leading the new way of disruptive narratives within their business, and in particular in financial services. At the same notion, BBVA is also partnering with Fujitsu, and they're looking into a quantum-inspired optimization solution by means of a digital annealer. And The Fujitsu Digital Annealer is available as a service on a subscription basis that includes both technical and consulting services, support, and optional additional consultancy for different solution developments. And it can be delivered, as I said, via the cloud or as an on-premise service offering. And remember what I said before, that because of the complexity of maintaining the quantum computer, maybe we're going to have flow between an intersection between cloud and quantum computing to access all these capabilities. Therefore, again, BBVA is looking here at an investment portfolio optimization. They're looking to harness technology for fast evaluation of possible combinations based on historical data, simulations of financial scenarios, similar cases, as I said before, with currency arbitrage, credit scoring processes, and so on. Therefore, BBVA is putting a lot of effort, is putting a lot of investment, is putting a lot of time, is putting a lot of strategy development around strategic alliances, around strengthening the internal capacity, because again, all these changes require also organizational change, require a new organizational cultural design, require also new ways of decision making and processing of decisions, using into technological assessment of different tools, technological forecasting, and also partnering with other organizations towards proof of concepts across the different potential use cases that they wish to deploy further. Commerzbank, again with Fujitsu, they're working into a proof of concept for what they call asset-backed securities optimization. And here the purpose is the fact that you've got all these receivables from leasing contracts which are sold to investors by car manufacturers in order to optimize their own liquidity management. These particular receivables are traded by banks, for example, as tradable securities with bundles categorized by risk profile and other factors. Therefore, this particular selection of optimization of these several thousand vehicle leasing assets for a securitization portfolio, this is the real use case that Commerzbank is actually working with Fujitsu at the moment. So what they're trying also to do is they're trying to utilize quantum computing because they need to simultaneously consider volumes of factors, which of course come from regulatory requirements, they come from absolute volume limits and percentage limits for specific asset mechanics. Basically, how do you basically build a portfolio which has a greater risk diversification? And that requires further complexity, that requires additional layers of factors to be put together and considered. Therefore, that increases the capacity and the requirement for data storage, for data analysis, and for the positioning across different scenarios on how this potential optimization portfolio could look like. JP Morgan Chase & Co. has partnered with Q Network. Here they're looking at a quantifiable operational benefit. They're looking into trading strategies, optimization of portfolio management, asset pricing, and risk analysis. So you see, many of these organizations, they're very similar across the use cases that they're looking, but JP Morgan has really put at the forefront of this particular strategy a quantifiable operational benefit. So it's really trying to monetize the way quantum computing can change the business itself. Therefore, they're looking into an enhanced risk detection capability and also real-time analysis of what could be some potential what-if scenarios in terms of really trying to understand what these strategies could mean for trading and also for optimization of portfolio management and risk analysis. Again, remember that risk is one of the key foundational capabilities that all financial service institutions are looking, and it determines massively the way decisions are made and also portfolios and investments are being handled. Goldman Sachs has partnered with QCware. Again, they're looking into a Monte Carlo algorithm around the sampling and approximately counting. Again, simulations which are a more inefficient and effective manner. And again, we're looking into strategic partnerships between a financial services player and a big tech, or in this case, a quantum startup. Standard Chartered has partnered with the USRA, which is a University Space Research Association. It's a collaborative research agreement, and they're looking into the development of quantum machine learning models by utilizing what we call predictive signals with big data. Again, the use case here is the portfolio optimization, and what Standard Chartered is trying to see in terms of some foreseen and potential benefits, looking into better risk management. Again, risk is a common denominator across all these use cases. Faster execution, so faster processing of analysis, and again, fast-paced environment. New financial product development, more from a business side point of view, and also disrupting existing processes, therefore looking into this evolutionary transformation of existing processes, which will boost, of course, performance, which will boost new businesses, which will boost new offerings of the bank. Scotiabank, in collaboration with BMO Financial Group and Xanadu. Xanadu is a Toronto-based photonic quantum computing specialist. They provide a little bit of a different approach here, and I really like the narrative here is they start with the notion of a defensive strategy. Therefore, what they're looking here primarily is they're looking into quantum safe encryption methods, basically the ability to break public key cryptography, and how do you actually utilize and build a post-quantum cryptographic infrastructure. So it's all around the grounding of data security, because data, as I said, is and you all know is the new oil, and is the key resource and foundation for financial services, and the security of data is really, really key. Therefore, they're looking primarily into how do they basically can harness quantum computing for positioning themselves as leaders within the cybersecurity and the cryptographic space. They're also looking into speed and accuracy of computation in trading, and also looking into a quantum Monte Carlo algorithm that is built by Xanadu. So again, you see a lot around training, you see a lot around simulations, you see a lot around optimization, but the main let's say objective behind Scotiabank is the defensive strategy behind building very robust, very solid, very military grade, if I can use this word, public key cryptography and post-quantum cryptographic infrastructure. CaixaBank in Portugal, they've partnered with IBM. They're looking into a machine learning algorithm for credit risk-based customer classification. Again, financial risk, which is more grounded on the mortgage portfolio and treasury bills portfolio. They're looking into more of a hybrid infrastructure and a hybrid computing, which is a combination of quantum, but also conventional computing. And they are using what we call the IBM's framework open source QuizKit, which is a simulator, and a 16-qubit quantum computer by IBM. So again, looking into similar manners of algorithms of risk, of credit scoring, mortgage portfolios, but the different I think is here is that the hybridity between conventional computing and quantum computing, which is again an alternative pathway of coexistence and maybe transition towards a fully quantum computing operational capabilities. DGB Daegu Bank in South Korea have partnered with SK Telecom. They've got their bank. They're really trying to position themselves within the security of their app. So what they're doing, they're using a 5G quantum cryptography technology, and they are using basically the quantum random number generator. It's called QRNG chipnet, which is embedded within the Samsung Galaxy A quantum phone. And what does it do? It's basically, it has the ability to generate true random numbers that cannot be predicted. And basically they use this for one-time passwords to transfer money or open new accounts. So again, more into the both security, but also seamless customer experience, a customer interface. And so this can also help around customer onboarding, opening new accounts. So really around the onboarding of new services and the provision of new ways of actually doing this in a seamless way and providing more enriched customer experience and more safe customer experience to their customers using both quantum computing, 5G, but also a mobile phone or smartphone. So if I would try to, let's say, summarize our conversations so far, I think the evolutionary transformation of financial services capabilities within quantum computing is really around the fact that we're looking into three areas. We're looking into the optimization area. So basically, on the one hand, we've got scenarios which are initially and primarily based on unrealistic assumptions, but with quantum computing, we may have the ability to have factoring holistic complexity for all possible solutions. So the optimization side is really, really important here for sound decision making. The second area is around machine learning algorithms, which is basically really into the fast processing and understanding of large and complex systems and data sets. And finally, simulation and pricing, which moves into a real-time Monte Carlo simulations rather than the slow Monte Carlo simulations that we're actually having. So in terms of financial services segments, I think portfolio analysis, optimization, quantum cryptography, fraud detection, high frequency trading, and quantum data and information are the key, let's say, cases and are the key segments that we would be looking into new ways that financial service institutions are trying to capture, are trying to utilize, are trying to explore by all these partnerships, by all these collaborations that are developing, and all the investment that are putting into the particular space. An interesting graph that I redeveloped from IBM. What they're trying to do is they're trying to see what could be some revenue potential of different financial services activities benefiting from quantum computing. So you see more than 1 billion, we're looking into feature selection, product recommendation. Between 1 to 5 billion, we're looking into arbitrage and settlement, portfolio management, derivative pricing, risk analysis, and credit scoring. And less than 5 million, we're looking into fraud detection, anti-money laundering, and forecasting financial crashes. So again, all these things, even though they look some more futuristic scenarios, these are some ways that some ways that financial institutions are looking, but also these are also some strategic decisions that are made around informing potential focus on key areas that on the one hand can harness more revenue potential, but also at the same time can create new ways of understanding business, of capturing business value, and also creating new ways of transformative innovation within financial services because of the deployment of quantum computing capabilities. Therefore, as a summary, the potential and foreseen benefits for financial services are really around the increase in the speed of transactions, data, and trade. It's the cost efficient and effective processing, which is also scalable, analytics driven customer relationships, which is around the personalization, which is really key. Individual level analysis is really foundational right now. So moving from mass customization to really individual characteristics, harnessing and collecting and factoring individual circumstantial peculiarities and looking into that personalization narrative of delivering financial services. Risk simulation and return maximization, as we said before, increased energy efficient computing capacity. That's really important because we have to bear in mind also that computing capacity is also can be quite energy consuming. So it's really important to factor that into account. So basically moving also into detection of fraudulent activities. Risk is really key. KYC practices and AML and counterterrorism financing, basically faster recognition of relevant behavioral patterns, and also financial data security by means of quantum cryptography, and especially post-quantum cryptography. Therefore, I think the overall balance here and the overall challenge will be around how do you actually create solutions to challenges by quantum computing, but at the same time, how do you basically balance the fact that quantum computing, if it's not used properly, can lead to problems for data security. Therefore, it's also important to understand that quantum computing can break cryptography, but also this can also lead and enable quantum-enabled hacking. Therefore, what that scares financial institutions, that quantum computing development may also lead to negative connotations around cybersecurity, around risk, around cryptography. So therefore, it's really important to allow research or our research and development and funding towards quantum-resistant encryption, which is at the heart of security within financial services and across, of course, all other industries. The final piece that I wanted to touch upon as the end of this presentation is really grounded on the strategic deployment and the outlook. So basically how financial services can harness and can utilize quantum computing, and how can they think strategically and move ahead with this particular technology in the future. I like a lot the narrative that Intel is using, that they call the road to realization. Basically, they consider the intersectionality between the lab and the marketplace. So basically, how can we basically achieve quantum practicality? And quantum practicality for Intel means basically the successful application to practical problems. And I think this is really key towards really trying to see some benefits and really trying to see some tangible outcomes and some tangible solutions that quantum computing can evolve and can bring within financial services. So again, we're not at the moment of looking across these types of we're not in the phase of looking across these practical solutions and these practical cases, but I think the research that is conducted, that the proof of concepts that are conducted are really key, because on the one hand they will show what could be the benefits and the risks, and also provide all this informed strategic decision making towards trying to harness that potentially disruptive technology. Therefore, I really believe that financial institutions, they really need to think quantum computing from a strategic point of view. That they really need to put together strategies to balance exploration and exploitation of this technology, and really they have to put some sort of a broader agenda around the enhanced problems solving capabilities of data-led technologies, and quantum computing is definitely one of them. So really fostering innovation and doing that in a way that is really secure, is really safe, and it doesn't intervene with the daily business of the organization. So experimentation here and R&D, but in a way that is understood properly and that is harnessed properly, and also putting down efforts to understand and map across practical problems and specific business challenges that are facing. So it's not just doing proof of concepts with quantum computing because it's a trend, because it is interesting, because it's the next frontier, but really trying to contextualize that within their own business, within their own peculiarities, within their own strategies, within their own visions, within their own business models, and try and see what are the key problems that they need to pick and work with quantum computing. Therefore, what the previous analysis has shown that engaging with quantum computing, lots of incumbents, they partner with big techs, they partner with quantum computing startups, they partner with universities and the government, and also they invest directly in quantum computing using either their own incubators, or by utilizing across investments in startups, or let's say other digital arms of their existing business. A key word that I used before is the competitive advantage, and I think this is the key and the common denominator of the strategic deployment, which is really key. So it's really important to have this kind of mindset and really utilize technological strategies for scale and privacy. I think it's also important to take into account the regulatory strategies for compliance and a regulatory regime. It's really key, because financial services is a very highly regulated industry. Therefore, it's really at the forefront of regulatory innovation and regulatory transformation, and really trying to utilize this and leverage that across the ecosystem development, and create, disseminate, and extract value at the ecosystem level, and not just on the organizational level. These types of technologies, as I said before, are really multidimensional, are really multidisciplinary. Therefore, they require a really ecosystemic view towards that type of approach. So it's really around a holistic enterprise architecture, which is grounded on the strategy, on the problems, on the processes, on the capabilities and resources, on the culture of the organization, and also on the technology and the system. And I've been talking with a lot of people, and they tell me that technology is the least of concerns for financial institutions. The main issue is actually to create a culture of acceptance, to create a culture of awareness, to create a way of change and learning, and around trying to understand what are the key problems that they're working on. And this also leads me to the next point, which is around the holistic business transformation of financial institutions. And this is a visual that my students within the Masters of FinTech and the Frontiers in FinTech unit prepared for their group assignment. So basically, what they try to utilize here, they try to see the overall business transformation that quantum computing will bring across the operation, the leadership, the technology, and the competition. Therefore, you see the magnitude of changes that financial institutions are going through at the moment within the harnessing of all these technologies, and the way they try to capitalize across these capabilities, which are also, the research and development is also going quite fast. Therefore, they have also to deal with regulatory considerations, they have to deal with cultural considerations, they have to deal with ethical considerations. So lots of things are being put in their innovation agenda that is really important for financial institutions to have. They need to have an innovation agenda that looks across all these technologies, and now taking a closer look at quantum computing, And of course, we see the gradual maturity of the space, the emergence of problems that could be tackled by quantum computing, especially in the light of COVID-19, and really allowing financial executives to be trained to understand and explore in a more solid manner quantum computing. Therefore, I do believe that quantum computing innovation can have a transformative potential. Of course, the long-term implications are not fully understood and will take, I think, years for them to understand. We need clear standards and expectations on what does this actually mean, what kind of changes this will entail beyond the technology. We need further experimentation and a continuous evolution of case studies. We need a lot of regulatory clarity and ethical standard harmonization in relation to data analysis, to data capturing, to access to data, and how this analysis of data can be used for informed decision-making in an ethical manner, of course, in a responsible manner, and also greater inclusivity and technology resilience, which is part of also the general conversation around the role of smart and data-led technologies in financial services. And the final piece that I wanted to share with you is the fact that I believe that we need to look these technologies within an ecosystem and interconnectivity manner. So basically how quantum computing can be interconnected with AI, with IoT, with cloud. So a holistic approach integration, determining the responsibility of the key ecosystem players, and really harnessing and supporting pragmatic entrepreneurship and innovation. So learning loops, learning efforts, learning by doing, and really putting together what we call a quantum culture, because again, quantum computing brings a massive philosophical discourse and a massive philosophical conundrum. So a quantum culture is really, really important to be established, to be institutionalized, to be deployed in order to generate readiness for the post-quantum world within financial services. So this is what I wanted to share with you. I hope it was interesting. I hope it was meaningful. I know that most of these cases are not yet really, really hands-on. So there's a lot of theoretical and futuristic flavor within all these conversations. But I wanted to thank you so much for both staying with me for this hour and listening to this and watching this presentation. I know that I brought both the technical and also the business side, which can be quite challenging in terms of balancing these two. I would be more than happy to stay in contact, and for anyone who would be interested to connect with me to discuss or answer questions or explore potential ways of working together. And definitely also thanks Stelios and his team for bringing me on board and for inviting me for this session today.
Dimitrios, what an incredible and comprehensive presentation on such an incredible topic. Limitless opportunities enabled by quantum computing in countless areas, and quantum computing giving us the ability to address, as you said, so many issues and challenges in so many fields. Truly fascinating technology and approach with such an enormous potential for use in so many applications. Dimitrios, thank you again very, very much for your time, your participation, and your very educational and detailed presentation, also showcasing multiple real-life examples and business cases on quantum computing and on how financial services institutions can leverage the power of quantum computing to innovate in so many different areas. Thank you very much, and we will be speaking with you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitrios.
Thank you. Take care.